Hello, everyone. Welcome to our webinar today. We are thrilled to have with us RemoteLock's CEO and CMO. We are going to be talking today about how landlords are going keyless with smart access control. This is something that I've been asked about so much in the last couple years, and even more so recently, that I thought, why not have two experts on the matter really talk to us about exactly what smart access control means. This is going to be sort of an interview style webinar where we're going to get to know Nolan and Brad here on the call a little better. And we're also going to dive into exactly what smart access control might mean for you moving forward if you're a landlord or a property manager. I also want to just say that this whole thing is being recorded. So if you miss anything, you'll have access to it tomorrow or posted live on any of our social media channels. And we'll also have time for questions. So if you are logged into our Zoom webinar, you can submit questions in the question box, not the chat. If you put it in the chat, we may not catch it. So please put it in the question box. And if we have time, we'll be sure to get to those questions at the end. So before we begin, first of all, thank you so much, Nolan and Brad, for coming on to the call with us. I'm going to do just a quick bio background on both of you so we know a little bit more about you before we get started. Nolan Mondrow is the CEO at RemoteLock, a Denver-based software company that has created the first universal access control platform. And prior to RemoteLock, Nolan co-founded Positiveware, a strategy management software business, and he led business development for various entities, including Syngistics, First Advantage SafeRent, and CenturyLink. Brad Mushovic is the Chief Marketing Officer at RemoteLock, and he's responsible for all of the marketing and the communications at RemoteLock. And prior to that, he was involved with the Rocky Mountain Institute, a global clean energy nonprofit. He was the VP of Marketing and Sales at Outward Bound USA, and he also led the marketing and product management at Registry SafeRent, which actually sells risk management services to the multifamily housing industry. So I think it's great that you both seem to have some background actually prior to RemoteLock in the rental industry space. So I'm sure your insights are going to be very helpful for our audience. So again, thank you so much for both of you coming on today and spending your time to talk to our members about this.
Great to be here.
Thank you for having us.
Great. So let's start off with just what is RemoteLock? Tell us a little bit more about it. You know, either one of you, Nolan or Brad, you can take it away.
Yeah, I can pick this one up. Alexandra, thank you very much for having us. Really appreciate AAOA hosting this and giving us an opportunity to chat a little bit about what we do and some interesting problems in the space. RemoteLock is an access control software company. We were founded in 2011, and we control doors like elevators, parking garage gates, and lots of door locks. We started in vacation rental as our primary vertical focus, but we are really now very, very engaged and focused in multifamily. And that's the vertical where we spend a lot of our resources and attention. Just a little bit of example of our scale and scope. We open doors from our system over 100 million times every single year. And that represents about 40 million unique access users, people that go in those doors. While we focus the majority of our business here in the United States, we are used in over 65 countries. So quite a good global reach, as well as a very, very solid presence here in the United States. It's important to note about us that we serve customers that are all sizes. We have lots of customers, tens of thousands of customers that have just a few units. And then we have some that are very complex and have thousands, multi-thousands of units. So it's a good kind of sampling of what RemoteLock is and does.
That's interesting. I didn't know that it was actually global, and that's like an amazing reach. So wonderful. So how did you two come together at RemoteLock? Because I also noticed you both worked for SafeRent in the past. So was there some connection there as to how you guys got together?
Yeah, it's funny actually. Brad and I, unbeknownst to either of us, went to the same business school, and we didn't know each other there. We were there at the same time, same year, and everything.
Uh,
But we worked together after that in a couple of places. Most recently was about 20 years ago. There's a software company, as you mentioned, called SafeRent
mhm.
that is focused in multifamily. They were making applicant screening and risk management tools at the time we were there. I was managing business development. Brad was managing and running marketing. And we just kept in touch over the years. When we formed RemoteLock in 2011, that's when I really went out and reached out to Brad and recruited him hard. Truth be known, I've been trying to recruit him prior to that. That's when I just finally broke through and got him. So that's how we go back.
Yeah, so I was with SafeRent for 5 years. We were bought by a company a lot of people on this webinar might know, called First American Registry. They were our biggest competitor at the time, and then we later became known as First Advantage SafeRent. So the company went through a few iterations there, but yeah, multifamily technology space is super exciting, and there's just so many opportunities to bring efficiencies to apartment operators, and that's exciting to be here. And I've been here. Nolan brought me in 2 years ago.
Yeah, there's been an explosion of technology in the last 2 years in this space. And I have been astounded by all of the new ways that landlords are, really, it's going to be easier, as hopefully as time goes on and there's more and more things that they can use to automate some of their, management. And I know you guys both have been at RemoteLock now for some time. What's some of the biggest lessons that you've learned while you've been there?
Well, I can tell you, for me, one of the biggest things I've learned, we are a high growth company, so we're scaling fast and we've scaled fast. And this is not necessarily unique, but biggest lesson I've learned is you hire good people. It doesn't matter what the environment is. Don't compromise on who you're hiring. If it takes longer to find the right person, then just wait. And then, frankly, get the hell out of their way and let them do their job. I mean, those are the two biggest learnings that I've had as we've scaled this company.
And that's how you found Brad.
Yeah, I knew about Brad prior, and I've always kept the hell out of his way.
Yeah. Yeah. So, as I started 2 years ago. And so by the time I interviewed and started, most of society had moved from a predominantly in-office environment to being largely remote. So I started, my first day at the office was remote because we had moved to a really flexible remote or in-person working environment for RemoteLock. And it's been interesting to me because I've always enjoyed throughout my career being in the office with coworkers and doing work in person with them. But I think for me, what I've seen is that when you have really smart, motivated, capable people, it doesn't matter your work environment or even your proximity to one another. You can get amazing work done. And I'm fortunate. I feel really fortunate to be with RemoteLock, and I feel fortunate to have an amazing marketing team to work with as well. They haven't missed a beat.
That's amazing to start an entirely new role, especially a senior position in the middle of a pandemic or right before, it's just, I can't imagine. So good job. Sounds like you have a great team then. So Nolan, I want to get to know a little bit more about you as well. I saw in your bio that you're fluent in Japanese. And so I just had to bring that up. My fiance has been studying Japanese for like 3 years now, and it is so hard, but he keeps going. How did you become fluent? It's amazing to me that you are fluent.
It is a hard language to learn. I think it's near impossible to do it without actually living there. I remember I studied it for a few years in college and then went and was an exchange student in Japan as my first foray. I thought I could speak it at that time, but I got off the plane and was met by my host mother, and she was rattling off Japanese. And I was like, oh man, I don't understand a thing you're saying. So immersion is really what got me there. But yeah, that's why I speak it. I studied there, and then actually, the first business I started right out of college was in Japan. That's something, that's a cute little tidbit, but it was an import-export company. So I went back there and actually had the experience of founding a business within a completely different culture. And today, because of the relationships that I formed and kept in touch with over the years, we actually have a major investor that is a public company in Japan, and we also have that same investor is a large customer of ours that sells RemoteLock throughout that territory. So it's really led to some nice synergies along the way, having that background.
That's amazing. I love that. I'll tell my fiance there might be hope for him to use Japanese. So in the future. And Brad, I also saw that you have quite a background in outdoor sort of activities, and not to mention also your background working for an outdoor company. Can you tell me a little bit more about some of your background there and how that is part of you today?
Well, yeah. So my father was in the Army, so we moved a lot growing up, and I had the pleasure to live in Alaska as a kid on 2 different occasions, through 3rd to 5th grade, and then all through high school, and they've been there ever since. So really cultivated a love for the outdoors, and if I'm not doing my work here with my family, that's where my heart is. And from my dad, actually, I learned. My grandfather was a master machinist who had to leave school to put his other siblings through college and through school when his dad died. But he could build anything, and he taught that to my father. And so my father was a builder of custom wooden canoes, and he taught me that. So that's a hobby I have on the side as well. It's just building canoes from scratch.
That's amazing. Okay. Well, now that we know a little bit more about both of you and your background at RemoteLock as well, let's dive into exactly what is electronic access control. I've heard it called like 10 different things. So remote access control, keyless entry. What is electronic access control?
Yeah, so at the heart of it, electronic access control is essentially using locks that are powered to control who can enter different spaces, rather than locks that operate solely with physical keys. So electronic access control uses a number of different technologies to verify that the person who's looking for entry is authorized to go there. So you'll hear about different kinds of credentials, which are presented at a door, things like card readers or PIN codes or mobile credentials. And so with electronic access control, the key thing is with the right software, you can manage access from any connected device, whether it's a phone, a tablet, or a computer, and it allows you to manage access from wherever you are. So you don't need to be at the property to manage access for a property. Like I could manage a rental in Hawaii right here if I wanted to. And so the beauty of it is you don't have to be in person to decide who can enter where.
That's amazing. I know in the past, there's been some hesitation of just being a remote property manager in general, but something like this would just make it so much easier. And then, I suppose this falls into a lot of the challenges that landlords are facing right now with being more remote than before. What is some of the challenges you're seeing landlords face with smart access control in recent times?
Yeah, I mean, I'll start on this, and Nolan, feel free to add in. But the difficulty of managing and dealing with the complexity of keys is always at the top of the list for people. We've never had someone leave a keyed access system and say, gosh, I really wish I could have those keys back. So getting rid of the headache of keys is really a big opportunity for landlords. Additionally, managing access can be really time consuming, and because it's time consuming, it can be expensive. So with a solution like RemoteLock, no one needs to be there in person to grant access, whether it's for a resident or for someone in maintenance or anybody else. You can control the permissions from wherever you are. And then I guess I would also add that a solution, electronic access control solution like RemoteLock, can really help build occupancy. Not only is it a key top ranked apartment amenity year in and out, but it can add a lot of efficiencies for self-touring, for example. So you can allow an applicant to your property to tour a property without having to have yourself or a leasing agent or someone working for you walk them through the property. So you can get more showings, and you can free up staff to do other things.
Yeah, I guess I would also add, what are some of the challenges around access control in general at multifamily properties? Brad hit on a lot of them, and there are really a few reasons why people realize they need to go into remote access control. Either they've got real pain points where they have trouble letting maintenance people in, or they always have to have somebody visit the property to let the maintenance person in, or they have keys that they're managing. And we've got customers that have had horror stories where one of their facilities managers or their property manager had the master key and just took off one day, was disgruntled and left, and they had to spend thousands of dollars to rekey the whole building because he had the master key. So there's some real pain that people want to get away from, as well as, then you start to move into convenience, like Brad was mentioning, the self-touring. If that was very popular during COVID, because people didn't want to interact in close proximity to other people. And it also allows you to take advantage of some other I would call them amenity type draws to access control. I think increasingly people are expecting that their locks, that they're going to have electronic locks at the properties they want to live in. It's convenient for the tenant. So there's lots of reasons, either attraction of tenants as an amenity or solving pain, that people move to this technology.
Yes. I mean, I think now people prefer to tour on their own. At least that's what I've been seeing in multiple surveys. Like most renters, they kind of just want to go on their own time and check out the property. So that's, I think, one of the biggest changes I've seen, at least amongst our members and their tenants wanting something like that. So the question that I received actually, even prior to this webinar, from some of the people who are registered, was whether or not you need Wi-Fi for this to work, because it is a cloud-based software. So that's always the next follow-up question. Do we need Wi-Fi, or do we need power? Like, what if the power goes out? So maybe you guys can answer that.
Yeah, let me grab that one. We get that all the time. No, an emphatic no. You do not need Wi-Fi for this to work.
Great.
And let me give a little bit more color. Of course, if you've got Wi-Fi, you can hook up your locks at the property directly to always be on, always be connected. You can remotely lock and unlock them. And so that's definitely one end of the spectrum. On the other side, there are lots of technologies that RemoteLock manages, which we call it an offline lock, even though it's connected. And that is things like using your phone as a key, and also to pass data back and forth from the lock to our central system. We even have PIN codes that you can generate, which are restricted access from they start on a specific time and day and end on a specific time and day. You don't need to be connected for that. In fact, that's a very popular technology in places where Wi-Fi or internet in general is not reliable, maybe a mountain town. We've got lots of companies that use us for cabin rentals and things like that, where they love that technology. So there are multiple ways that we have for you to manage property and access remotely without having to connect to Wi-Fi.
That's great. So really anywhere, any rental property could use it, theoretically. So how easy is it to use? Because that's the second question I got a lot. I'm sure you get it as well. Can I install it myself? I saw that question come up a few times, actually. What are your thoughts there on it?
Yeah, so first of all, I'll start with the installation piece. It's actually, yes, you can do it yourself. In fact, when I took this job with RemoteLock a couple of years ago, my son loves to do stuff. He loves to build things. And so he took our lock and, without any supervision at all, actually replaced the old one on the door. We had a keypad lock, but it wasn't cloud connected at the time. And he replaced it, installed it on the door, connected it to our account, and had the lock up and running. So he was 11 years old then.
I was going to say, how old was he then?
No, he was 11 years old.
Okay, that's great.
Impressive. So it is easy to install a smart lock on a door. Now there could be applications on a property where someone wants help, and if someone wants help because they're installing 50 locks, or we will put customers in touch with installation experts to help them, whether it's with smart locks or if it's with wired access solutions, like for a front door or a garage or a gate or an elevator. There are some access solutions that go beyond even a handy person's capabilities. And we have a network of professional installers that can help with those things. But when it comes to putting a lock on the door, my 11-year-old kid did it. I wrote a blog about it. So now, as far as how easy the application is to use, it is built to be extremely easy. So RemoteLock is a software first company. And what I mean by that is, our emphasis is on building the software that can control a lot of different locks from different manufacturers, whether it's Schlage, Igloo, Kwikset. We have a quick way to remember it is we over 10 lock brands and over 100 lock models, but we're a software first company. And we've made the software to be extremely easy and intuitive to use. And you can do just about anything with a few clicks. And within 10 or 15 minutes, a new user will honestly be able to navigate the tool and understand how to grant a new person access, to give someone temporary access to particular doors on the property. It's extremely easy. I guess the other thing I'd say is, I said we're software first, but we're also hardware agnostic. That's the piece that can also be of a lot of benefit to our customers, is that they get real choice in the hardware that they want to put on the doors. We're not pushing any piece of hardware. So the software is easy to use. The locks can be easy to install. And as a company, I think RemoteLock's easy to do business with. The customer never has to worry about us foisting a piece of hardware on them that's not right for them. We sell the hardware and you can buy it from us, but if frankly, we don't care where you buy it. We just want to help you get the right access solution for your needs.
That's fantastic. And, I just saw a question come up in the chat from Nia here that I think is actually really great. She's talking about old doors and that aren't aligned, which is an issue with a lot of older buildings. So, across all the types of properties that you see, how do you address those types of older style doors?
Yeah, I'll pick this up. This really builds on what Brad was saying, that we're agnostic and really software first, which means that we're controlling so many different lock types and brands and models that we can actually focus on one that's going to work for an older door. I think what the person who submitted the question might be asking about is, well, some of these locks have deadbolts that are motorized, and if that's not perfectly aligned, then sometimes that can be off kilter. It can be. There are different options with that, where there are clutch versions, not to get too far into the technology, lever locks, surface mount locks. The point is there is something likely that solves that problem for most doors.
Great. Okay. So it sounds like you might have a solution for anything that might come your way. At this point, you've dealt with so many doors, millions of doors, that I think safe to say, if you have a door, you guys can help to make it smart access controlled. So if I'm a landlord, looking to get into selecting a system, whether it's RemoteLock or something else, what is it really that landlords should be looking out for?
Yeah, I love that question, because we actually do have a pretty good process when we walk somebody through how they should select what lock is perfect or what access system is perfect. It always starts with what I call your use case. Like, what's the problem you're trying to solve? We talked a little, I mentioned this earlier, but are you trying to stop managing keys? Are you trying to let some of your residents into an amenity like a pool or a game room or something like that? Are you trying to have a solution for contractors getting in remotely so that they can go fix the AC in unit 101 and only have limited access? So, we walk through what it is that you really are trying to solve first, because that's gonna imply what type of lock that you want to do, and also what we call a credential, what method you want to give people. So when I say method, there could be PIN codes. There can be mobile phones that people use as keys. There can be physical cards that we've all used that you present to a reader. So we kind of go through this process where we narrow down, starting with your use case, then your door types. Tell me about your doors. The question about the old door, perfect example, comes in at that point in the process. And then finally, we get to this credential idea. So it's a funnel that we walk you through to get to what should be the perfect match for not just your entire property. You can have many different types of locks within a single property. So we can even get it to specifically what's best for that door.
That's great. Okay. I see a couple questions in the chat as well about remote keyless locks for a fence gate or a steel gate on a driveway. Wendy and John, you both have gates. So I'm assuming those types of access points also count in this door definition.
100%. I should have rattled off doors, elevators, parking garages,
anything that opens,
gates, swinging gates, motorized sliding glass doors. Yeah. And to the gate issue, yeah, just the way those work is these metal gates you can do it a few different ways. Again, like everything else, you can mount locks on the gate with some protection so that people can't reach around. You can have electrified gates if you've got power. You can do it by battery. There are lots of options for that gate entrance as well.
That's great. Another interesting question that I saw come up is the security level on these locks, right? People are always fearful of any type of technology, that there's going to be a hacker or something, that can be, breached there. What are some of the security measures, or maybe even security bonuses that you might get from something like this?
Yeah, thanks for actually adding that tidbit at the end there, Alexandra. I would say bonus is a good way to put security, and that's start there maybe, because if you're managing by keys right now, you're clearly a little bit in jeopardy because people can copy them. Even master keys that you think can't be copied get copied. I mentioned that anecdote about the property manager who offed with the master key. So there's some definite issues with just plain key management. When you talk about security for electronic locks, though, look, this technology has been around for decades now. We abide in our system by the same level of protection of data that your banks do when you go log on. It's 256-bit encryption for those who are geeking out a little bit on TLS, technology. There are multi-layers of additional things. So if you're worried, oh my God, can somebody sniff the signal and replay it? No, the locks typically know how to prevent stuff like that. So I would say that while nothing in this world is bulletproof, we're pretty darn good at making sure that your locks are secure. And I would definitely say they're probably more secure than if you're managing with keys.
Okay. Great. I think the more security, the better. And also too, still getting a lot of questions. No power is needed. No electricity is needed. No Wi-Fi is required. So that should answer about 10 questions.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's an emphatic no. You don't need power because you can use batteries. You don't need Wi-Fi. There are other options. Great. I mean, obviously we get the question a lot.
Yes.
But I think the practical application is if let's say the Wi-Fi is down and you do have a Wi-Fi connected lock, that lock is still going to retain all the access permissions that you've previously granted to it. And as soon as Wi-Fi comes back up, any new actions you take would be sent to the lock. So that's how a lock can work. That's how a Wi-Fi connected lock can work, even if the Wi-Fi is not working at this moment. And as Nolan had mentioned, there are other locks that work in scenarios where you have really unreliable Wi-Fi or just don't have Wi-Fi at all. We call that just an offline environment. Yeah, and
I'm sorry, Alexander, I'll piggyback on that really quickly to say that because we've set this system up to manage every brand, some people might confuse us like, oh, you're a remote lock. No, we don't make a lock. We control Yale, we control Schlage, we control Dormakaba, we control Assa Abloy, we control Igloo Home, we control all of these lock brands. So they make the locks with all the different technologies that Brad was just alluding to, and we have a platform that manages them all. So that's why we're capable of doing all of these things either online or offline. If online, what happens when internet goes down? That's what our system does well, is adapts to the locks that other people make.
Okay, that puts it in a little bit, I think, clearer for people on the call, and also why it's software first. That's really what you're selling, is the ability to connect the locks and control them from anywhere and get that system together for a property management company or a landlord. The other question that I saw come up beforehand was whether this also would apply for single family. I spoke to someone not too long ago who has 80 single family homes across the country. Something like that. Is this still, for any type of rental property?
It is. It actually can work at any property, whether a rental property or otherwise. So we have customers that are just using them on a residential home. Vacation rental customers, like the example that you're asking about, Alexandra, clients who have dozens or hundreds of properties that are all in different locations. So the beauty of that is from wherever you are, we can manage access to those properties, even if those properties are distributed across the country. So we have customers in, residential, vacation rental, commercial markets, of course, in the apartment industry. So if you've got a door and you want to secure it, you can do it, and you can manage it from wherever you are. And no matter how many you have, you can, with a remote lock application, you can manage one lock, or you can manage hundreds of thousands.
And this is a good question as well. Janet, just for her, they are global, so it could be literally outside of the United States as well, right? And also, someone asked a really good question here about what quantity of locks or how many doors should you have to make this a feasible option or an option that makes sense. So, is there a minimum that you think?
There is a minimum. The minimum is one. Yeah, you got to have one. No, but I'm joking, but yeah, it's one or thousands. We have customers that have one, and we have customers that have thousands. We have customers that have it in one place, one house, and we have customers that spread their properties from their single account across the United States in different cities from that and manage it all in one place. So we do both.
Okay, that's great. So literally everybody on the call, because I think you might have a rental property, just a guess if you're on this call. Also, how much does it cost or to buy, install? Like, what are they paying for this? The access to the software, the locks, like a monthly thing? How does that part work?
Yeah, so once people have their hardware, and again, they can get that from us or from anywhere, but the pricing for the software is anywhere from $6 to $12 a month per door, based on the plan that you're on. And we have volume pricing as well, which we know is really important for multifamily operators. And the pricing goes down very significantly with volume.
Well, even at that price point, I think it makes sense. So new features on the horizon. I'm curious. So it sounds like you've done, it started in 2011, right? So it's been over a decade. It sounds to me like you've solved all the remote lock smart access control issues there are to solve. What new features, though, are you thinking of adding?
So yeah, we've certainly invested a lot in the platform, and remote lock is pretty full featured currently, but we're always looking to make it better. And so, a couple of examples: we have a new resident mobile app, which is in beta today, which will be launching in the near future. And that'll be a tool that for operators that choose to, they can let their residents have the capability of changing their own PIN or issuing temporary access for guests, a dog walker, for example. They could time-bound access for, the person to show up, take Taylor out, take her, bring her back from a walk, and then that access would be restricted. And then they could also temporarily lock or unlock the door. So that's that resident app is something that's in beta that's coming. It's also, we're saying, and I see it's connected to a question that's shown up in the questions as well. Like, we have lots of customers just use the remote lock software or, the phone-based app, the remote lock branded software, but there are people who want the access control capabilities integrated into other software that they're already using. So property management software, or it could be a rental booking platform. And RemoteLock has literally dozens of software integrations out there to add one more level of efficiency to operators who want it integrated in that way. And then I guess the other thing I should just mention is, we're a software company that controls a huge number of locks, and we're always adding new locks to the platform. And so, you might have locks on 50 doors, and there might be some new technology that comes out, and you want to start using that. With a remote lock, you can do that because you're not stuck with any one manufacturer.
That's great. That's great. And, for those of you asking if we're going to provide you with anything, if you did register with this webinar through Zoom, I have your email, so we can certainly send you more information about all of this and Nolan and Brad's info if you did want to get started. And I want to end with a couple things. One is some predictions that you might have for the rental industry. You have a very unique perspective in that you're handling rental properties all over the globe, and you're seeing trends that maybe we're not seeing. And so I'd like to, hear a little bit from you, what you might be seeing on the horizon for the rental industry as a whole.
Yeah, I think it's always a fun question to answer because you get to kind of take the crystal ball out, but I'll give you my version of it. obviously we're all seeing lots of mainstreaming of these technologies that are helping us both in the home as well as in our rental properties, things like smart home tech. I think that we've always recognized, that's why we're in this business, honestly, is that the most important piece of technology that everybody thinks about first is how do they control access remotely. We actually way back when started as playing with smart home tech in all kinds of ways on the platform, but this is the biggest and most important pain point. So my prediction here is that you're going to see a huge proliferation of this stuff. I mean, again, it's self-serving, it's why we're in the business, but we do think that remote access, electronic locks, it's going to become the norm over the next few years. If I want to go a little bit broader in rental markets in general, one of the things I see is people are looking at these smaller portfolios, maybe even a lot of single building owners, to offer technology for them. And that, I do believe, you're going to see a huge explosion in over the next few years also. That means property management software that's fit for somebody who just has one building. Maybe some other technology options that's fit for people who just have a couple of buildings. And I believe that we see a lot of the prop tech companies going what I'll call down market being, they're not a gray star, you don't have hundreds of thousands of units. Those companies have always had the advantage of technology. It's now being democratized to the level where really anybody, even single owner of a single unit, will have more technology at their disposal. I'll give one more interesting prediction and then I'll stop talking. But and this is just because we're really in the mix. We came from vacation rental and now we're moving in, focused very heavily in multifamily. There is this concept called flex rental, which means, you probably, if you're on this call, whether you know it or not, you've probably got renters in your properties that are renting on Airbnb. Or some such thing. So these two industries are trying to figure out solutions that allow owners of property to take advantage of both long-term renting and short-term renting in the same asset, the same property. And I think you'll see a lot more solutions that offer an ability for a property owner to actually make more money at that, not just have it be a liability for them. So those are my crystal ball predictions.
Love that. Brad, do you want to chime in with anything?
I guess I don't have any other predictions, but I would just there's so many great questions around technologies or locks or hardwares or how these different options might work. And I would just encourage people, if they have questions, to talk to one of the access specialists at RemoteLock, because they'll be able to help you sort through that. Like, there's no way we'll get to all the questions around this lock for this application or another, but I would just reiterate that this is not a journey you need to take on your own. RemoteLock is there to help you, and we've got experts that can answer all those specific questions for you.
That's great. That's great. Yeah, Nolan, I sent you a direct message if you wanted to share what your platform might look like. But I also remember now that we're probably going to have you come back and show us some more details on it. Nolan, if you have it up, I'd love to see it. But if not, those of you on the call can tune in later for more details.
I don't, and I didn't. And with my fumbling, it would probably take a call just to kind of show it. But I will tell you this, it's real simple to get a personal demo from us if you reach out, and that's going to be even better for everybody on the call, because it'll be specifically focused. They'll ask you, what's your property, how many doors, and then they'll show you, okay, here's how you would use it. They're very, very free and generous with giving demos if that's something that people want to see.
Great. Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. Sometimes looking at just like a whole software is kind of overwhelming if you don't have some guidance as to how to use it. So that is exactly why I would love to have you guys come back and really do a more detailed walkthrough of this sort of funnel process that you described, Nolan, of like, how do you get to the bottom of like, what are we going to use for our locks? How are we going to be unlocking them? What are the factors that play into that? What does the software on the back end look like? What's possible there? And then ultimately seeing how that could help landlords in the day-to-day management. So I'm really looking forward to getting more detail on that. But I think so far we've answered a ton of questions, and hopefully those of you on the call have a little better sense of what smart access control is. And if you don't, you know, you can contact RemoteLock and ask them more. They are very generous with their time. Nolan and Brad, thank you so much for being on the call today. We went a little over time, but I think that's okay. So I will be in touch with those of you who registered with the recording tomorrow and some resources from RemoteLock, and we'll stay in touch for the next webinar. So have a wonderful day, everyone. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Alexandra. Thanks everybody for joining.
Take care. Bye.